in the politics of the day.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I think we've tried to canvass a majority of national concerns around the LSK election. And right now, we'd like to focus on matters that is close to the hearts of members of the Law Society. And perhaps we could start with some sentiments that were shared to members of the Fourth Estate, my colleagues, by various members on the priority issues they want addressed by the gentleman who will emerge as the 52nd president of the Law Society of Kenya. Let's listen in.
My name is Anu Tieno. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I'm a young practitioner in the society. And my expectation of the next LSK president is that there will be a president who not only puts members' welfare first, because when you look at the Section 4 of the LSK Act, other than being a champion of public interest and getting into champion the rights of the public, the LSK president should also not put the members' welfare into the back burner.
I urge members to vote for somebody who can stand up for the rule of law, somebody who can continue the legacy that the outgoing president has set. It's very crucial that we vote for a guy who will stand for the rule of law, or a president who will say no to government, and a guy or a president who will stand up for members and the general public.
In this new leadership, what I'm expecting is a leadership that we can actually access, a leadership that actually hears our challenges in the practice.
Okay, just a drop in the ocean in terms of what some advocates really want highlighted as the priority concerns. I've had matters to do with members' welfare, which has featured prominently, and we'll get to discuss that in this particular juncture. I'd like to begin with you, Advocate Wanyama.
Yes.
I mean, the Law Society not too long ago unmasked masquerader, I wouldn't want to drop his name, who had been practicing law without formal qualifications. And that was a classic case of identity theft via a portal breach. So how will you protect the practicing space from such masqueraders? I noted it's in your agenda. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will answer that. But before I answer it, let me just tell members of the legal profession, the advocates, that amongst the three of us, just look at all of us. Who is more suited to protect the practicing space? Who has this energy, the zeal, the enthusiasm to fight for you when it comes to bread and butter issues? There are three of us. Who is more coherent on this issue? Who is more committed on this issue? Who do you believe will protect the practicing space? Who has the mental predisposition, strength, and commitment to push for your concerns, to kick out the masqueraders? It's definitely me. I have exhibited this by demonstrating the issue of protecting the practicing space and saying that it's going to be my focal point as a candidate for Law Society of Kenya president, and when elected LSK president, I will do what it takes to strengthen our practicing space. Masqueraders are unqualified persons. We have surveyors who are doing succession work. We have accountants who do advocacy at the Tax Appeals Tribunal. All this is our work as legal practitioners. We need to strengthen the systems at Law Society of Kenya so that we can intervene in a more progressive and proactive way. Myself, as a practitioner, we will work closely with the judiciary, because some of these masqueraders come to court and argue cases before forums. Like when elected LSK president, on the first day after I have assumed office, I will issue what I have called a directive. The directive will be addressed to the chief registrar of the judiciary. And the directive will be enforced as follows. first of all, we read as follows, that henceforth, every judge, every judicial officer, and every magistrate, before you accept anyone to appear before you, you must ensure that you verify the credentials of that practitioner. We must weed out these masqueraders. On the other side, we will work closely with the lands registry that any instrument which is a conveyance, it cannot be drawn and filed by a surveyor. Surveyors should keep off our space. Our space is the legal sector. It is our profession. It's like, as I said, it's like a jealous lover. We want it for ourselves. We don't want it for any other professionals. So we will strengthen systems to ensure that these masqueraders are not in our space. They don't eat the bread which practitioners.
All right. Well noted. Kabata, over to you, because during your 2-year tenure as the VP of LSK, how exactly did you address the challenges faced by the bar? Talk about the challenges faced by the young and old bar alike, from matters to welfare, perhaps to issues of medical cover. How exactly were you equipped to deal with the challenges?
Thank you for your question. One, again, it's a story of progress. We introduced 2 medical covers. One is by Octagon and Britam, and the other one is by Bupa. They are covers that our members are taking, or rather the uptake is very high. We intend to intensify that advocacy to see a more engaged membership that can take it up. We have also introduced a policy where we want our new system to enable a functionality where you can drop box that service particularly so that you can pay for your insurance as you pay for your practicing certificate. We do not want to make it mandatory because we have realized our membership is quite sensitive. And unless you take it through public participation in an AGM, it can backfire on you. We have addressed the question of sunset days for elderly members in terms of a pension scheme. Again, we went to Parliament on Gazette Notice number 110 and 111 on reduced subscription for young lawyers between 0 and 3 years. And we reduced the subscription fees substantially, where entry advocates pay a difference of 15,000 from 20,000. And it staggers back to 11,000 and then 13,000. We intend to bring this down further as we have broken ground in Gitanga Road, our main property, on the 5,000 subscription. It is not a story that we are saying we can do when we are elected into this. We are already doing it. And so if you look, for instance, at Section 4A, and I am glad Senior Counsel raised it, the import of Section 4A of the Law Society of Kenya Act is pursuant to a consent that was filed in a matter which is Constitution Petition number 5 of 2022. This is Maura Kabata versus the Attorney General and 2 others, where I went to court and challenged the practicality of designating advocates as reporting agents under Section 44 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. In that particular section, it then designated the Law Society as a self-regulatory body. This is an aspect where it provided the safety and precaution of an advocate reporting on behalf of a client, which will then violate the concept of privilege and confidentiality. We went to JLAC. We convinced members of the JLAC in the National Assembly to include this issue in an omnibus. They agreed with our position. Sadly, the president refused to sign it. We are moving with an omnibus when the National Assembly opens to reintroduce that omnibus back with the help of the Attorney General and Treasury. We have been in the Senate, before the Senate Committee on Legal Affairs, to address the question of county attorneys and county solicitors' tenures being fixed with the life of the governor. They accepted that, and it is now in place.
Okay.
I hope you see how time conscious I am. Please.
Well, I'm sure all gentlemen have appreciated the concept of time. Let me cross over to Senior Counsel, because there are many challenges in the legal profession faced by members of the young, middle, and old bar, whether it's accessing work, holding briefs, mentorship, visibility at LSK, especially amongst the young advocates. What specific programs do you intend to implement to support young advocates, especially including those from marginalized areas, including bridging the gap between the senior bar rather, and the young bar. Yeah.
Okay, so as I answer the question of the specific programs relating to the young bar, let me say that it's easy for each of us to paint even castles in the air. And to an extent, you're politicians. When you are seeking for votes, you can come and paint a very nice image of what I'll do to protect practice space, to expand practice space. The first question that voters should ask is, what is your track record? What have you done? So it's not just a question of, I have such brilliant ideas, but have you done anything in that area of protecting practice space? And then the second issue is you may come and say, look, I have been involved in doing A, B, C, D, and I have been in the current council, we have accomplished this. And again, voters will ask, okay, fine, you had a chance to accomplish. Why don't you give someone else a chance? So voters want to see someone who is able to bring fresh ideas and fresh hands to the job, but at the same time has a track record that can be assessed against them. So in regard to your question about young lawyers, when I was the chair of the Nairobi branch of the Law Society of Kenya, one of the things we recognize is that we need to recommend minimum terms of service for young lawyers. And actually, with my council, we prepared a document, recommended minimum terms of service. But the policy body in LSK is the National Council, it's not the branches. And so this is something I'd want to take forward. Secondly, we introduced structured mentorship programs or mentorship programs in Nairobi branch. I want to make them go national, to have structured mentorship where we even encourage the senior bar and the mid bar to participate, give them some recognition when they are involved in structured mentorship. But the most important welfare issue for young lawyers is a question of financial situation. They want to be paid better. They want their practice environment to allow them to open law firms if they can't get employment. LSK should be a trade union for young lawyers working in the public service, including pupils, so that we give them better, they are paid better by the public organizations, and then uplift the standards in the private sector as well, so that young lawyers are being paid more, they have contracts of employment, they have medical cover, they have ability to get loans through LSK Sacco and so on. So those are some of the concrete things that I'm going to do that are connected with what I've done before. More information is found in my manifesto and track record that can be accessed at charleskanjama.com.
Okay, since you still have time, is there a minimum wage for pupil lawyers? Has that been enforced?
The situation is actually a bit terrible. In some public sector organizations, pupils are given pupillage and not paid a shilling. They are just meant to work during the pupillage period without any pay. We've seen how the medical professional body, like Kenya Medical Association and largely the Union of Medical Practitioners, fights for medical interns. They are graduates to be paid a minimum salary when they're in the public sector, even during that training period. LSK has not done this before, recognized its role as a trade union for lawyers in public sector. So they are paid as little as zero. In the private sector, it depends on what the employer wants to pay them. I remember when I was looking for a place for pupillage 22 years ago, one of the law firms I went to, I was told pupillage is a place to learn, not to earn. The L is important. And I asked, why can't we do both? Why can't we both earn and learn?
Okay, interesting. Let's cross over to Wanyama, because still talk to us about the steps you'll take to perhaps bridge the gap between the senior and the young bar, because we have to build on the foundations placed by members of the senior bar vis-a-vis building on the aspirations of members of the young bar. So how will you balance these needs that are similar yet diverse?
Thank you very much. Allow me to just say something before I answer that question. That, and I need to look at advocates in their eyes. Advocates, I will do what it takes to ensure that we have a leadership that is responsive to all your needs. All you need to do is to vote for me and leave the rest to me. In respect to your question, let me say this. Law Society of Kenya, we need to move away to bridge this divide, this leadership deficit within the legal sector, where you are seeing the young bar pulling away from the senior bar, and then you have not mentioned the mid bar, the forgotten bar. We need to do what it takes to plant the seeds for the growth of the legal profession through what I call an organic leadership, as opposed to a mechanical leadership that we have now, because this mechanical leadership is loose. You have loose arrangements. Members of the young bar are not considered for appointments to boards of state institutions. Why? Is it because they're inexperienced? Why are we doing a lot of wheeler dealing at the council when it comes to appointment to members of the boards where LSK has a statutory mandate? Can't we have members of the young bar to be represented? Secondly, what programs can we put in place that create cohesion? We've talked about mentorship. I am mentor number one. From 2013 to date, I have mentored more than 400 lawyers on sectoral strategies in policy and legislative development. The numbers are there. We need a law society of Kenya that is able to respond to the needs of the young bar through a serious and structured mentorship that is offered by the senior bar. So as LSK president, I believe in leadership through mentorship. And what I will do on the first 3 months is to ensure that we create structured mentorship programs for the young bar. And here, we want to train the young bars, the members of the young bar, on 2 things as I finish: technology and artificial intelligence, and other emerging areas of practice, which I'll mention in my next time.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll have to give a chance of rebuttal.
Correct.
Yes, because mechanical leadership, do you agree with that? Willing dealing when it comes to appointments?
Now, let me put it like this, and I have been noting this. Number one, we have a rotational system of appointment into boards representation by the Law Society of Kenya. It is not cast in stone that it goes to senior or mid-bar advocates. In fact, a majority of these appointments goes to young lawyers. Why? Because young lawyers do these jobs in those big law firms or those medium-sized law firms in the first place. It is rotational. It goes around all branches. We start with Nairobi, we end with Mombasa, or we end with Rift Valley. Number two, I keep on hearing this question that I have mentored this, I have mentored that, I have mentored. Where are the numbers? Where are the numbers? Or why does it arise only when we are in front of a television set or when we are in elections mood? Where are the people who are saying, he mentored me? Those are the questions that we should be asking. Number four, it is outrightly correct that everyone knows that the council that I am in represented young Kenyans during the protest, the Gen Zs. You can't take that away. If you can ask where my 2 colleagues were at that particular time. Probably I can vouch for Kanjama. Now, it is not correct to say that, in fact, I can vouch for Kanjama. I used to see him around. On the question as to LSK being a labor union, you don't have to say that you're a labor union to be a labor union. You can still unionize yourself and address the questions, the labor issues of your members in the same outfit you are. We go to parliament all the time to talk about in-house councils. We have petition E272 of 2022, and we have Erastus Githinji, we have Cliff Manoti. We are moving on to enforce it in HIRS. You don't have to say Law Society of Kenya Union. You don't have to go to court to defend an advocate, as I do, because I am at Woli. It doesn't work that way. You do it, you do the right thing in the state that you are in. You have to do the right thing in the state that you're in. I rest it to that.
Okay. Kanjama, I'll definitely extend the courtesy of responding to some of the issues that have been raised, but equally, LSK has more than 20,000 members, with the number of advocates drastically rising in recent years. This, of course, is in the backdrop of a shrinking practice space. Do you perceive this as a problem? And what's your vision if elected?
There is a problem of a mismatch between supply and demand. Let me explain. In the November intake of advocates of the High Court, we reached the 27,000 member. But of those 27,000, only 2/3, 18,000, are active practicing members with a practicing certificate. Some of them have joined the judiciary. Some are state counsel who don't take out a practicing certificate. Some may be deceased, retired, have gone into other issues. Yeah. 18,000 active members from a population of about 54 million means one lawyer for every 3,000 Kenyans. That's the per capita rate of lawyers per the population. When you go to countries in Europe and America, you will find the rate is around 250, 300. It's almost like 10 times more lawyers for the population. Even in Africa, when you go to countries like South Africa and Nigeria, the rate is higher. It means Kenya needs more lawyers. So in terms of supply of lawyers, we need more supply. Mm-hmm. In terms of demand, there are many Kenyans who are having challenges of access to justice. Their cases take too long in the courts, their transactions take too long in the land registries, there are delays, there's inconsistency in judicial decision making. Even the cost of access to legal services is high. So Kenyans are feeling that the lawyers are not enough, or they are not enough to give them access to justice. The lawyers are feeling that we are not getting enough work. There's a bottleneck somewhere. And it needs somebody who has thought through the issue to resolve it. And that is one of the things I've been doing during my years in practice. I'll give you one example in very few seconds because I don't think there's much time. The Small Claims Court, when it was established to deal with cases of below 1 million shillings, within 2 months has been flooded with number of cases and litigation. The judiciary has tried to appoint as many adjudicators and magistrates as possible, but they are not able to cope with the amount of cases being filed in the Small Claims Court. So you find the adjudicators are overwhelmed. They're handling hundreds of cases, some of them per day. On the other hand, you have so many young lawyers who are looking for work, they can't get a job. Why can't we get some of these young lawyers to become trained as adjudicators and help to resolve some of these cases? So these are some of the bottlenecks that we need to resolve, and we need a transformational leader to do it. That is my commitment to Kenyans.
Okay, Wanyama, over to you. That's yes. Widening gap between legal training yes, and employment opportunities. How will you address this challenge if elected?
Yeah, it is a very significant challenge. I'll definitely address it.
How?
But it will require short-term, medium-term, and long-term ideas. But we must plant the seeds for the growth of the legal profession. Remember, in my prediction, if we don't address the issue about the practicing space, if we don't protect the shrinking practicing space, then we are witnessing the death of our profession. Because numbers keep coming in, and we are all going for that small bread that is shrinking. Surveyors are eating that bread, accountants are eating that bread, and everyone else. Then you have digitization and technological democratization, where services get digitized. Members of the public don't need lawyers to do certain basic services. So what this means is that the legal economy then shrinks. So as LSK, to be the true and correct trade union for practitioners, it must start by planting that seed for the growth of the legal sector. And this is how it should do it. One, by protecting the practicing space. Members of the LSK Council need to do what it takes that is legally possible within all the legal parameters to ensure that we protect the practicing space. I've already mentioned the scenario. Secondly, we must now deepen that practicing space. As the economy grows, remember, they say lawyers are social engineers. We are supposed to take the lead. Accountants, economists, and all the other ones are supposed to follow us. But then when you go into the subsectors of the economy where legal services are needed, we are not there. So as a matter of priority, we need to ensure that we use our CPD program to get lawyers to acquire knowledge on emerging areas of legal practice so that we don't compete for one bread. We go for the 23 other bread that is there in the legal economy. We need lawyers in the media and entertainment industry. It's an emerging areas of practice. We need lawyers who understand intellectual property law at a deeper level. We need lawyers in technology, climate change, and artificial intelligence. We need lawyers in policy and legislative development in nearly all the subsectors of the economy. And to me, I will open up those areas.
Okay. Maura, I'd like to ask you matters to do with employment of advocates, which some might say is largely unregulated we've heard of numerous complaints about toxic workspaces, discrimination, and procedural terminations, just to mention a few, including underpayment. What should be done to improve the status of employment in the legal profession?
We have built synergies around policies that address the question of employment of our members. We have the sexual and harassment policy, we have the anti-bullying policy. Sadly, we have not had a regulation or a set of regulations that address the question of employer-employee relationships within the legal sector. It happens within the public sector as an employment question, but then in the private sector, which also absorbs a lot of advocates, it is largely addressed through contract and employment law. We have a routine, or rather we have a directorate in the Law Society that receives these complaints, especially on sexual harassment, bullying, and also unfair labor practices. Although you will realize that now these unfair labor practices usually go to the labor court and not to the Law Society as a dispute platform, because we address the question of professional misconduct either in the Advocates Disciplinary Tribunal or in the Advocates Complaints Commission. You can actually take these complaints because they are complaints that can be dealt with. Although in the Law Society what we do is we get reports of recalcitrancy, of persons who repeat, or we receive repeated incidences of complaint, and then now we earmark and address it with those particular responsible members from the Law Society of Kenya. It is unethical to refuse to pay someone a salary on work they've done. If you see us talking about it in the public sector in terms of remuneration or legal fees to be paid by advocates who are offering services to public bodies, then it is even more embarrassing when our own members do it to fellow colleagues in the profession, that you employ someone to work for you, and after some time you actually earn these fees, and then you do not remunerate them. For instance, if an advocate is out of town, say in Embu, and you give them a brief to hold brief for you, and you get paid, say, 40, 45 million, and a young advocate, you do not pay them, then that is very embarrassing, in fact.
Okay.
I'm talking of a particular case which is true, of an advocate in Embu.
You've mentioned something to do with the disciplinary tribunal in LSK.
Yes.
How frequent does it sit?
It sits monthly. It sits monthly, but it can also form its own sittings based on the number of cases that it has. It deals with questions of professional misconduct and indiscipline in advocates, especially on the question of mismanagement of client accounts, as well as professional misconduct on how fellow advocates treat each other. In fact, a majority of the cases that land either in both the tribunal and in the commission are questions as to communication, lack of communication, that an advocate failed to communicate to a client when that client required that communication to come to them.
Kanjama, I'm interested in your approach in dealing with graft, especially amongst members. I asked him the question of how many times that disciplinary committee sits. I'm pretty sure you're aware of some of the capacity challenges they might have. I understand they sit pro bono, so the frequency might be a challenge in terms of increasing it. How exactly would you deal with tackling graft, especially amongst members of the Law Society? You know what they say about one bad apple.
Yes. Let me start by reminding the viewers and listeners that the 12th function of the Law Society of Kenya is to protect and promote the interests of consumers of legal services and the public interest generally by providing a fair, effective, efficient, and transparent procedure for the resolution of complaints against legal practitioners. So while the primary role of LSK is to represent legal practitioners, to improve the standards of legal practice, LSK also has a statutory role to take care of the interests of consumers of legal services. And this provision is anchored on Article 46 of the Constitution, that Kenyans are entitled to goods and services of the highest quality and to information about those goods and services. So the structural mechanism for dealing with failure to meet the standard of professional practice and ethical conduct required is one, the Advocates Complaints Commission that is under the Office of the Attorney General, that you can take a complaint, it is investigated. They are like the police or investigator, the prosecutors together. They investigate the complaint, and if they feel it has reached the bar, they then take it to the disciplinary tribunal. So that is the second organ, the disciplinary tribunal. But I think we cannot restrict or limit LSK's engagement with just supporting these two entities. The Law Society of Kenya, through the council leadership, through its branches and chapters, has to find ways of engaging its members, dealing with complaints, sometimes between one member and the other. When I was the chair of LSK Nairobi branch, we set up an internal complaints resolution mechanism for complaints between one lawyer and another. There are many mechanisms that we ought to put in place, including, allow me a few more seconds,
sure,
including taking advantage of continuing professional development courses to sensitize our members on how to practice with more ethical standards, ethical law firm management, ethical practice of conveyancing, ethical practice of litigation, how to mitigate situations where clients are unhappy about legal services, how to integrate the business of law into the practice of law so that clients are satisfied with the services we offer, they know what to expect, and they get what they were informed about.
Okay, Wanyama, briefly, I understand there's a public policy that reserves up to 30% of all work in public institutions for young lawyers and women. Is it implemented to the letter? If not, what steps will you take to ensure this is a reality, not just an ideal scenario?
Yeah, thank you. It is actually one of the issues that I've considered and we are going to prioritize. We argued it the other day in Nakuru when we were explaining before the judge that you cannot disenfranchise lawyers. Because I am what we call a candidate who believes in practice issues. So for young legal practitioners, the status now is that we have a problem. You will find a state corporation when they procure for legal services, all they say is that you have 20, that for them to put you in the panel, you must have 20 years experience, that you must be a senior counsel like Mr. Kanjama here, that you must even be 2 senior counsels in a law firm. 3, you must have a PI cover of 500 million. You must be an arbitrator. You must be that. They set a very, very high threshold, which most young legal practitioners cannot meet. Yet my interpretation is that this high threshold actually breaches the provisions of Article 27 of the Constitution, which says we are all equal before the law. Secondly, it breaches the provisions of Article 227 of the paragraph 2 of the Constitution, which says that a public entity shall create those preferential schemes. So what I will do, and young practitioners, mark this, because we are going to push this very hard for you. We have to ensure that all public agencies in Kenya have work that is reserved for lawyers that have newly established law firms. So we will push for mandatory introduction of preferential schemes in procurement, specifically targeting lawyers who have newly established firms, lawyers who have 5 years experience, lawyers who have 10 years experience, and then the senior counsels like Mr. Charles Kanjama who just get work because they are senior counsels. Yeah. So what happens is that we will create, we will issue a framework, and in this case, push for a framework that encourages equality when it comes to distribution of work from public agencies. And I'll make this happen. Young lawyers, don't lose hope. I am here for you.
Well, implementation is key. Let's see. Yeah. As we finalize, Maura, there's this matter to do with the current strategic plan under the LSK that ends in 2027. I know this is not such a priority area, but how will you ensure a new strategic plan is in place?
Thank you. First of all, let me start by saying that it is quite funny that someone will stand on national television and say that he will prioritize a scale in procurement of legal services to young lawyers when he has not done it himself internally. Even one case that a young lawyer benefited from this individual. We are on national television, so the truth matters. But now, when you talk about the LSK strategic plan, I'm happy to also report that I was part and parcel of the team that developed the 2023-2027 Law Society of Kenya strategic plan, as well as the human resource manual, which we call the organogram. And so I am alive to the fact that it ends in 2027. I was part of that team.
Okay.
As president, I bring progressive leadership as well as institutional memory. What I bring is I will formulate a committee together with the council members and members of the secretariat to develop another draft strategic plan with a key input on areas where we had shortfalls, where we did not meet our targets, to implement and also address the directorate to give us their strategic goals, so that when we look at the previous document that shall lapse in 2027, we will have already generated a draft in 2026 that will be ready to be presented to our members, because public participation for these crucial documents is very key to avoid the question of it being challenged in court. And we will address that question on especially the focus as to the Law Society's revenue generation as well as its service to its members, but also with a key focus to have a surplus on our goals going to our branches. And it is something that will require a competent leader, someone who works with teams to be able to see it being done, and someone who can delegate, because you don't have to be a president to sit in those committees. You have to delegate this authority to your colleagues in council, as well as empower the members of the secretariat to seeing it being done. Once it is approved by the members at the AGM, it will be adopted as a document in 2027 when the other one lapses.
Okay, gentlemen, I'd like to give you a platform to give your final submissions, even as you speak to the realities that are facing lawyers, young, mid, and senior as well. A maximum of 2 minutes each. We'll start with you, Senior Counsel Kanjama.
I went first in the opening submission, so I should go last in the closing submissions.
All right, I'll start.
I can start. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let me just say this, because this is really important. As Law Society of Kenya, have we utilized our potential when it comes to dominating the public space and ensuring that lawyers take the center stage in public policy and all other decision-making processes? We haven't. For example, this issue of procurement of law firms, especially the newly established law firms owned by young lawyers. Have we done what it takes? Have we written as LSK president to these state corporations a directive that when you procure, an advisory, that when you procure, you must procure in a manner that, that enhances equality and in compliance with the provisions of Article 227, paragraph 2 of the Constitution? Have we engaged the Attorney General in a meaningful and qualitative way to protect the practicing space? What can the Attorney General do under the provisions of the Attorney General Act to ensure that we don't necessarily condemn lawyers who toil hard and they are not paid legal fees? So myself as a practitioner, I have 18 years experience in legal practice, and I believe that there is something that we can do. And I summarize my vision in an equation in physics. That is F equals ma. Force equals mass and acceleration. It simply says an object which is in a state of inertia, and we are not saying that state of inertia, nothing is being done. There's something which is being done. We have our Kili towers which we will pick up and develop, maybe 30 seconds. We will pick up and develop. But what we are saying is that Law Society of Kenya needs some little bit of fresh ideas, fresh force, to push it into addressing the practice challenges which practitioners face.
Thank you so much. Maura Kabata.
Section 20 of the Advocates Act requires that senior counsel goes before me. I swear. It's the law.
No, I started, so I'll go last.
If we can set a precedent.
Well, he's applying himself to that principle.
Very well.
Kindly take the stage.
Needs to go, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Before he gets angry,
no problem.
Allow me to say this. The Law Society requires progress. It does not require promises. What we are saying is, as my colleague has just said, we have written to several state corporations. We have written to the Kenya Ports Authority. We have written to the KenGen, the Kenya Electricity Generating Company. We have said that the criteria for procurement is one that should be fitted in the Constitution under Article 27. And they have agreed with us. They have recalled their advertisements in newspapers where they require two senior counsels in a law firm, a PI cover of about 1 billion Kenya shillings. We have done that. We have addressed the question as to young lawyers and their needs, mid-bar and their needs, the older generation and their needs. We are continuing to make a call onto the unity of the bar. We are continuing to make a call onto the independence of institutions. Unlike my two colleagues, I do not take any brief from governments. I do not take any briefs from public entities. I am completely devoid from interference by the government, meaning that I can address government without fear of losing work. I have not represented any politician in the Supreme Court. I have not represented any politician in the Court of Appeal. I have not filed any petition for the removal of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. I am not conflicted with government. I will face government in the roadmap that we are going to take. I will address the questions as to our membership needs and aspirations. It will be a question as to a cohesive law society of Kenya that will address its own members and also members of the public. It is not something I am promising. It is something that I am doing. And we are going to make it happen in the next council, because I promise you, we will come back here and I will be the 52nd president of the Law Society of Kenya. You can take it to the bank. And I have so much respect for my two colleagues because they are senior. At least today, I have learned that precedent is something that we should not follow. And we keep learning as students of the law.
Well, thank you. Over to you, Kanjama.
I have been saying that the time is ripe. There are 4 key pillars of the Law Society of Kenya functions. The first is the rule of law. The second is to safeguard the integrity and independence of both the bar and the bench. The third is to focus almost obsessively on bread and butter issues for lawyers, and that is practice and welfare. And the fourth is to continue engaging members, branches, chapters, other associations of lawyers and other stakeholders. Those 4 pillars are the 4 pillars of my manifesto. Those 4 pillars are the ones which are demonstrated in my very strong track record, which is a track record that is unparalleled by any of my colleagues. And I think Mr. Kabata says something that is interesting, that you need a lawyer who's the next president of LSK, who's a practitioner, that is not going to be influenced by either government or any other agency to interfere with their independence. But lawyers are also saying, can we get a true practitioner whose bulk of practice does not revolve around the Law Society of Kenya? Can we get a true practitioner who is there in the trenches, doing conveyancing with lawyers, doing litigation with fellow colleagues? Can we get that person to come? And can that person who has been in practice around the Law Society of Kenya give way to someone else and also focus on other areas of practice? Why? Because we want a strong LSK for all, for the young bar, the mid-bar, the senior bar, for in-house lawyers, for external practitioners, for the lawyers who do commercial conveyancing work, for those who do litigation practice. So that lawyer who can secure a strong LSK for all, because the time is ripe, and the time is not tomorrow, is today, is yours truly, Charles Kanjama. I look at all the lawyers listening, and I humbly seek their support and their vote. I don't take it for granted, so that I can become the 52nd president of Kenya, of the Law Society of Kenya, and assist them in the function of transforming the legal profession into the 21st century.
Senior counsels have a function to mentor young leaders. I just wanted to say that.
All right. Our time is up, unfortunately. So much to talk about, so little time. we've been able to canvass most, if not all, of the issues. Of course, you continue with your campaigns. All the best to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
May the best
Thank you very
council
much.
win. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
Senior Counsel Charles Kanjama, Mwaura Kabata, asante sana for your time. And Peter Wanyama, we appreciate your input during this live debate. Tonight wasn't just about the candidates, it was about you, the young lawyer who might be struggling to pay rent, the senior lawyer who's worried about the erosion of the rule of law, and the Kenyan back at home who looks at Law Society of Kenya as the last line of defense when fighting against tyranny. Well, the elections are slated for the next 2 weeks. So much time, and to the learned friends watching, campaign period is about to end, but your duty is just beginning. So on election day, make sure you vote for the person who brings meaningful change, protects your license, your livelihood, and the country's constitution. My name is Jesse Rogers. On behalf of the entire team who made this production a success, we say asante sana. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.